Good morning, everyone. So I hear there have been some complaints that you can't see the board from the back. Who asked you to come? So I do apologize. We'll try and do what we can to make it more visible to those at the back. In the meantime, I will try and explain whatever I'm writing on the board in a little bit more detail. So when I'm pointing at things, even if you can't see what I'm pointing at least you will know what I'm pointing at. So we'll try and work something out. In the event that I forget to do that, just put up your hand or something so I know that you can't see what's going on, or you just don't know what's going on the board. So I know that there's a problem. I can do something about it. Okay? We're among friends here, so there's a lot we can do to try and make sure everyone's comfortable. And so please relax and enjoy. I was going to say enjoy the ride. Enjoy the ride to Nibbāna. If you can't enjoy it now, you will never enjoy it. Nibbāna is in the present. Right, let's begin then. Let us all bring our palms together to make our veneration to the Supremely Enlightened One, the Buddha, reminding ourselves that this is not a mere mark of veneration, but also a pledge of allegiance that we take to walk the noble path to attain the ultimate bliss of Nibbāna. Let us ensure that we take this opportunity to renew our resolve to be steadfast on our journey, because there is no other refuge than the refuge of the Noble Triple Gem. If it is unconditional happiness you seek, then there is no other salvation. With that in mind, let us commit ourselves, commit our lives, and commit our purpose to attaining the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Let us chant the Namaskara in recognition of this, seek refuge in the Noble Triple Gem, observe the precepts, and get on with today's proceedings. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. In my lay life, I didn't used to speak so much. There's a lot of wear and tear these days. So the throat is always flaming up or something. Excuse me. But one word of the truth is more precious, more valuable than 100 words of falsehood, isn't it? So, what good is our energy, our vitality, our health, if it cannot be put to good use to serve mankind? What good is the energy that I have within me if it cannot be put to good use to help heal hearts and mend minds? That is what we do. If this breaks, it breaks. Well, all things break. All things except a mind that has understood the Dhamma. That doesn't break. The mind itself will pass away, but that peace, that freedom, that bliss, that is unshakable, unbreakable. You will become invincible, ladies and gentlemen. When once fortified by the Dhamma, your mind will become invincible. It will not be able to be penetrated by the pangs of raga, the sting of dvesha, and the poison of moha. It will not. It is towards that unshakable, unbreakable, invincible state of mind that we make progress week on week. If I were to ask you the question, how much confidence do you have that this Dhamma is true? What answer do you have to offer? Would it be that you would say, well, if the Buddha taught it, then it must be true? Is that all you have to say? If the Buddha uttered these words, then they must be true. That's good, but that's not what I am expecting from our righteous Rajagiriyans. I expect more than that. I expect more than belief. I expect more than faith. I expect conviction. Conviction does not come just because the Buddha said so. Conviction does not come just because a monk clad in a robe comes and takes the dharmasana and he speaks. He looks like he knows what he's talking about, so it must be true. Appearances can be deceiving. I have deceived people in the past. Yes, I once asked someone's hand in marriage. You can't believe that I would have done something like that, do you? Can you? What I did. I have deceived people in the past. I have promised people that I can give them happiness. I lied. I didn't know that I was lying. But it's what I had to say so that I could get what I wanted from them. So, just because I come and speak to you, I don't want you to believe every word I say. What is your testimony that the Dhamma is true? That these words are true? What is your testimony? So if it cannot be that it is the Buddha who must have uttered these words, then what can it be? Ah, yes. There are a lot of people who come along to these sermons. So then it must be true. A lot of people, look around you. Well educated, established, people well known in society. So if they come along, then it must be true. Is that so? No, did you not see them at the party last night? So how can their presence be the testimony for you that the Dhamma is true? Well, it's done at Gateway College. It's a school that has a solid reputation, so it must be true. Is that your testimony? That these words are true? Then what is it? How do you know that these words are true? Why is it that you keep coming week on week? There can only be one veritable testimony that this Dhamma is true. What is it? Absolutely. Your conviction and your conviction alone. If through the application of what you have learned here, if by contemplating what you have learned here, if by reflecting upon what you have learned here, your lives have taken a change for the better. If you are beginning to experience a bliss, a joy, a happiness that you have never experienced before, then that is the testimony that this Dhamma is true. Because then it is not hearsay. It is not he said so, she said so, so it must be so. I don't want that for any of you. Because for as long as it is that, Some Tom, Dick or Harry will come and tell you something else about this, so they might cook up a story, or they'll say, Swaminathan, he's a mastermind. He corrupts. He brainwashes you. He has an ulterior motive. He's coming here for the dane. Because you're Colombo folk now. Whereas in Ingiriya, we only get rice and dal curry and some kola sambal and something like that. Once in a while, a papadam. But not so in Colombo. The food is good here. So that's what he's after. People will come and say that, and then you will take it wholesale. This has to be true if it's true for you, ladies and gentlemen. So I want you to ask the question of yourselves. Now, last week I asked you to do a bit of homework. Were you reminded when you got back home? Homework? Good. Did you try it out? What did we agree to do for homework? Spoil dinner, right? That was what we agreed to do. Spoil dinner time. All these years, you enjoyed meal time, dinner time. Everyone got around the table, either switched on the TV or started talking about something, and you just indulge in your dinner, and it was the good times. Getting around the table and having dinner or a bit of a chat. But last Sunday, what happened? Dinner was spoiled. What did you do for dinner then last night? What did you eat for dinner? What did your body eat? What did your mind eat? This is the question. Because you are what you eat after all. You've heard that a million times over, haven't you? The doctors always chant that like a mantra, you are what you eat. It is true for the mind as well. You are what you eat. If you eat what is given to you by the Asat Purushas, then you become an Asat Purusha. Then your mind is rife with ignorance and attachment and desire, aversion and delusion, and your life becomes a living hell. But if what you eat is what is given to you by the Kalyana Mitras, then your life becomes heaven on earth. As mine has become, thanks to the noble association that I am so privileged to keep. So what did you do for dinner last night? Not last night, last Sunday. Hopefully this is what you did. You served yourself, brought it to the table, if that's where you normally have your dinner, sat down, looked at it, and you stole at the plate, and in there you saw Swami Nahanse's face. Knife and fork came to your hand. And then you must have seen color. Color. There was color on the plate. Or was there? That's the question. So tell the person sat next to you what you had for dinner last Sunday. Go on. You can tell the person sat next to you what you had for dinner last Sunday. Embarrassed. Okay. So what colors did you see on the plate? If you had carrots, orange. If you had rice, white, chapati, off-white, idli. I don't know, what did you have for dinner last night? Don't ask me. I don't have any dinner. I don't take dinner, so I can't answer that question. Whatever it is you had for dinner, you would have looked at your plate and you saw color. If you left it at that, ladies and gentlemen, then you've lost. You've lost the game. If you left it at that, then you've lost the game. Because color is not on your plate. Color is not on the plate. Where is color then? Color is in the mind, or color is the mind? That's a thought-provoking question. Is color in the mind, or is color the mind? Do you remember what we discussed, what the mind was last week? The mind is a mechanism that you have to interpret fluctuations of energy that go on around the world. So when energy bounces off of this, some of that energy is absorbed by this material and some of it is bounced off of it. So there's a change of energy. That change may be picked up, and it can be picked up, and it can be interpreted by the mind. So your thoughts are mere interpretations of energy, fluctuations, changes that happen in the world. That's what the mind's there for. That's why they call it awareness. To be aware, something must be going on, right? Something's going on. That is to be aware. You're conscious, and hence they call it consciousness. Conscious. When someone faints, they say they are unconscious. What does that mean? Just think about it. Think along the lines of how we've just defined what the mind is. When someone's just fainted, right? And then they say they don't respond. That's when you know that someone's unconscious. You click in their ears and you tap them on the body and no response. How do you know they're unconscious? Because they don't perceive changes that go on in the outside world. That's when you say they're unconscious. So how do you know that you're conscious? How do you know that you're conscious? Because you perceive. You can hear these words. You can see what's going on. You can hear what's going on. You can smell what's going on. Hopefully, you're not smelling anything right now. You can feel the world around you. And even if all those 5 sense doors were to shut down, you can still have thoughts of your own. Then you know that you are conscious. So what is consciousness then? It's to be aware. Now there are 2 types of awareness though. There's awareness and there's insightful awareness. Now we are talking. There's awareness and then there is insightful awareness. Awareness with wisdom and awareness without wisdom. That's it. These are the 2 types of awareness that you can be in. So are you aware right now? Let's just check whether you are aware right now. Are you? Well, you are nodding your head, so clearly you are aware because I've just asked you a question and you are responding to it, so I know that you are aware. You know that I'm aware. We know that we are mutually aware of one another's presence. But are you insightfully aware? That's a whole other ballgame. Because right now, if you're seeing Swami Nuhanse talking to you, then you're just aware. You're not insightfully aware. Because there is no Swami Nuhanse here talking to you. Say, what? I hear some of you say. There is no Swami Nuhanse here talking to you. If you're saying Swami Nuhanse has come here today dressed in a nice red robe, you are not insightfully aware, you're merely aware. Because if you're insightfully aware, then you must know that redness is not something that I feature. It is nowhere on me. Redness is nowhere on me. I cannot wear red because my clothes have no color. What about yours? They have no color either. You might be wondering, why am I banging on about this? The reason is, I need you to become aware that what you have are thoughts, ladies and gentlemen, chittas. To come to that awareness, you need to be mindful, but through insight. The mere reflection that color does not exist in the outside world, it's in and of itself. In and of itself is a contemplation that chittas are born within you. Just think about it for a second. Because there are two ways in which you can see color. One, you can be aware of color and just be aware of color. There's a lot of color here. You can be aware of color and you can say, well, yeah, the tablecloth is a hue of gold, the betel leaves are green, the Swaminatha's fan is of white, yellowish. Right? There are some spotlights pointing at him. They have a color, the carpets are blue. That is to be aware. And you can speak about the world. You can give a talk. You can come up here and describe the world around you, as we've always done. But then to be insightfully aware is to see color, but then to know that color does not exist out there. These are chittas being born inside of you. There we go. It is to be aware that chittas are born inside of you. And why is that interesting? Why is that important? Why is it interesting? Why is it important? Why is it important to you that you are aware that your experience of the world are mere chittas? Why is that important to you? It is for you to come to awareness. It is for you to have this cognition that you are not you. You are not you. What are you then? If you are not you, me. What are you then? A chitta. If I were to sum up what Nibbāna is in a sentence, I could put it something like this. Nibbāna is your acceptance that you are merely a chitta. It will take you a lifetime to accept that. Perhaps longer. Right now you might say, Swaminatha, it's not that difficult. I already accept that we are just a chitta. Yes, but you can't help the feeling that comes from inside of you that says, yeah, it's a chitta, but it's my chitta. You can't help yourself from feeling that. That is why when someone says something to hurt your feelings, what do you say to them? Don't hurt my feelings. In fact, do you know why feelings get hurt? Because they are your feelings. When you think that a feeling is your feeling, then those feelings are, there's a tendency for them to get hurt. Now, who here don't get hurt feelings? You need not be here. So I know that you have come to some kind of acceptance that these are only chittas. You know now this is a body and there's a mind that's inside this body, right? And chittas they arise, they pass away. You know the drill now. When an eye comes into contact with an object, consciousness is born. You know all this, but here's what you cannot stop from happening within you. That is a sense of self. So even though you know this through knowledge inside of you, you're still feeling a sense of self. That is the problem. That sense of self is what brings you grief. It's that sense of self that brings you shame. It's that sense of self that brings you embarrassment, greed, lust, guilt, all of these emotions with which you struggle. If I ask this room, how many of you struggle or suffer with guilt every now and then, pretty much everyone will put their hands up. Yes, Swaminatha, it strikes me when it strikes me, and when it does, there's nothing worse than that. And then if I ask you, what about anger? At least half of the room, if not 2/3 of the room, will put their hand up and say, yes, Swaminatha, it strikes when it strikes, and when it does, nothing's more painful. How about when you feel insulted? Insult. There are insults and then there is feeling insulted. Those are two different things. You must not insult, but what's more important is that you must not feel insulted. There are two different things. We must not insult. That is why the Buddha summoned the Arahat Thera at the time. His name was Pilindavacha. And he asks the Venerable Thera to stop calling people names. Not names per se, but he used to go around calling people Vasaleya, which perhaps in today's day and age might be the equivalent of bugger. So it was deemed disrespectful. People didn't like that. It was not a very classy word to use. It was disrespectful. So the Buddha had to summon him and said, henceforth, I want you to stop. Please don't use that word. It was insulting. The word was insulting, but he was speaking to an Arahant. So the Arahant was never insulted. And he didn't want to insult either. There was no intention of insult, but he didn't know that these words were insulting others. So he just took on the advice and he promised, from here on, I will make every effort to stop using that word. So perhaps, once or twice it must have, through a slip of the tongue, it might have popped out, but soon enough he broke the habit and stopped using that word. So in the same way, we must be aware that there may be certain things that we do, certain things that we say, certain behaviors that we have about ourselves, which others might find insulting. And so what must we do? As we live in society, we have to conform to norms and be respectful towards each other and ensure that what we do, our conduct, is not insulting towards others. Yes, of course. But if others' conduct insults you, if you feel insulted, then whose fault is that? Of course. Then it's your fault. So, if at the workplace or if at home someone says something and you feel insulted, ladies and gentlemen, that is your fault and your fault alone. You need to accept that now. You need to accept that now. So all of these things are creations of the mind because of ignorance. And that is why I need you to now come to awareness, insightful awareness that you are merely a chitta. Now sometimes people offend you by making reference to physical deformities. Maybe not in civilized society, but behind backs. When you turn your back to them, then people call you names. Oh, you don't know the names that people call you. If you have a full head of hair, just you wait until you become bald-headed. Then they will have a plethora of names to call you by. Starting with, that's the one. See, I don't even have to spell it out. You know the one. You dirty-minded people. So, as monks, if people don't like us, that's what they call us. Haven't you heard people calling monks by that name? If you are Sri Lankan, if you've learned Sinhalese, right? At least once in your life, if not you, I like to think that you've never used those terms to refer to a monk, but you must have heard people calling these names, either because they were agitated, annoyed with something or someone, right? Or seen it on the media or whatever. Starts with ta. See, you know the one. So if you have a full head of hair today, wait until you lose that hair and then people will start calling you that. They will not call that to your name. But as you walk away, that is gone, they will say. What if you're a bit on the short side? Then there are names for that. What if you're taller than average? Then there are names for that. What if you're visually impaired and you have to wear glasses? There are names for that. What if one leg is shorter than the other? And then there are names for that as well. There are names for all. What if you're darker than the average dark? Then there are names for that. If you're fairer than average fair, then there are names for that. If you have a lisp, there are names for that. If your eye is squinted, then there are names for that. If you have a squint eye, there's a name for that. Yes? You've been to school, haven't you? Well, there you go. That was not in the syllabus, but your friends made sure that you learned all of them. See? But you like to think that people don't call you by those names, don't you? Those names are used for everybody else. Just not who? Just not? Yeah, everyone thinks that. Everyone thinks that. Everyone thinks that. Why do you think that people don't call you by those names? Honestly, why do you think that people don't call you by those names? Because you don't like to be what? Insulted. Yes. Because it hurts you when someone were to insult you. If you're a bit on the short side and someone calls you, no, I'm not going to say it. If someone calls you that, then you would feel insulted, and so you like to think that no one calls you that. That's why when someone crosses the road, they take risks. When people cross the road, even though they will be the best advocate, perhaps they're the chairman of the road safety authority, if there were ever one like that. But even when they cross the road, they take unnecessary risks. That is because you never like to think that bad things happen to you. There's a tendency. The ignorant mind always thinks that what I wish will come true for me. Because that gives you hope. That gives you a future in which you can live, because the present is always so painful. So you like to live in the future. All of this happens, ladies and gentlemen, because you are still not insightfully aware that you are nothing more than a citta. And that is why I asked you last Sunday to come to your insightful awareness that when you look at your plate, there is no color there. Your perception of color is evidence to you that you are nothing more than a citta. Can you connect the dots? I need you to do that. Because that is your meditation. Connecting these dots. Let me ask you a question. See whether you can connect the two dots. 1, color is not out there. 2, you're just a citta. See if you can connect these two dots. It might seem like I've just stated two randomly unrelated facts. Not so. They're very much related and they go hand in hand. How so? How is that so? Even when color is not out there in the world, you still see color, don't you? So for color to be seen, then perception has to happen within you. If perception is happening within you, then that is a citta. So now you can connect the two dots. See, I'll tell you something. If you live the rest of your life from here on, just being mindful of the fact that color does not exist in the outside world, and when you perceive color, you're merely perceiving a citta, and a citta is all you are, that alone is enough to get you a long way to Nibbana. That alone is a meditation karmasthana. Don't take these things lightly. That alone is a meditation karmasthana. You need not sit cross-legged chanting something or doing some profound contemplation to get to Nibbana. Nibbana is in the present. It's here, it's now. It's your insightful awareness. That's what it is. So when you saw the colors last night, well, I keep saying last night, maybe I'm hopeful in the back of my mind that you also did it last night. Did you, or was it just Sunday you did your homework and so you were done, and then from Monday onwards it was back to your old ways? Or did you actually continue the practice? That's up to you. I hope you did. I know that I can't grab you by the neck and take you to the monastery and bring you to the Valley Malu and say, right, meditate now. And you're not going home until you attain Nibbana. I can't say that because you wouldn't let me. So I can't do that. So then I only am left with one option, and that is to teach you how you can meditate whilst you are still at home and going on doing your household chores. When you have left me with only that option, then I have to constantly keep reminding you that you have to meditate while you're at home. You have to meditate while you're at work. You have to meditate while you're at school, Putta. You have to meditate while you do your shopping. What are you doing now then? You're not at work, you're not at school, you're not at home, you're not doing your shopping, you're not anywhere. So what should we be doing now then? Meditate. So what should I do for you to start meditation? Shall we switch off the lights? Shall I stop talking? And you can start meditating? Because that is the meditation that we have all come to know. It's the meditation that we've always heard. It's what people have always said meditation was about. It has to be quiet. It has to be quiet. And there has to be a little lamp with a tiny flame, flickering in the wind. If there's no wind, you can switch on the fan. So it gives you the same effect. And then you can have some potpourri or something, just to keep the ambient fresh. So this is meditation environment, isn't it? And then you need a nice meditation cushion. You can't have just about any cushion for that. These chairs are no good for meditation. I don't know who put these here. Bring meditation cushions. Because when you sit on a meditation cushion, meditation happens, right? That's what they're called. Meditation cushions. Actually, do any survey, and I challenge me if you can, do any survey and find, and you will realize that they should not be called meditation cushions, they should be called sleeping cushions. If they are named by what happens to people when they sit down on them, then meditation cushions are not what they're supposed to be called. Hint, hint. Let's start to meditate. How many sermons have we been doing now? Or have we done by now? 100 and? What is it now? Who's keeping count? After 100 you gave up, right? 4, 5, 6, 7? 4? Okay. Something like that, right? So I've been talking to you for 104 or so weeks. Shall we start meditating now? Enough preaching, right? Enough preaching. Now let's do some meditation. So you tell me how can I help you with that? Switch off the microphone. I'm never going to get you used to doing that sort of meditation. I'll tell you why. It is because it is unrealistic. It is not practical for you. Let's be honest. How often do you find quietude in your life? Serenity? Tranquility? How often do you get that at home? If you have children, then the answer is never. So how often are you going to be able to do that? If you have to do a job, then the answer is never. If you live with your family, then the answer is never. So the answer is never. then it seems like it's better if you went deaf, so then you won't hear anything. So is that to say then the deaf and the blind meditate better than those who can see and those who hear? So do they get to Nibbāna quicker than those who have fully working sight and sense of hearing? No, we need to use our intelligence about this. Meditation is what? Meditation is insightful awareness. That is what meditation is. Insightful awareness, not just any old awareness. See, you're aware that things are going on right now. You're aware that there's a person sat next to you, right? There's someone sat next to you. You're aware. So therefore, if you sneeze, if you're about to sneeze, what would you do? You would cover your nose, wouldn't you? Because there are people around you, so you're aware. That is awareness. But that's not what awareness? Insightful awareness. If all you take from today's talk is the difference between these two, then today will have been a very useful talk to you. What is the difference between awareness and insightful awareness? When you are aware, you're alive and you're living. When you're insightfully aware, you're meditating. Ladies and gentlemen, you're meditating. And you can be insightfully aware doing whatever you're doing. Whether it's cooking, cleaning, washing, eating, watching TV. Now don't start there, for heaven's sake. Let's not start there. Start with something a little bit more conservative. And then we can become adventurous with the TV and the radio. And can't we be insightfully aware while I'm dancing, Swami? Yes, well, let's not get there. Let's try that later. Let's get there later. But first of all, you need to get some practice. That's like saying, can I run before you have learned to walk? But all things will come to those who not wait. Those who practice. All things will come to those who practice. Just like when you learn to drive. So for those who can drive, you know that when you first began to drive, you took driving lessons, what happened? You got into the car. Hopefully there was someone sat next to you, so you were not self-taught drivers. Hopefully you had an instructor who at least half knew what he was doing or she was doing. And then, how did they get you to hold the steering wheel? With both hands or with the palm, half the palm of one hand? No, that's advanced drivers, right? Because phone in one hand, half palm steering. Don't do that. Don't do that. You're risking a life. You're risking many lives, actually. Actually, don't ever risk your life because your lives are very precious. So don't risk your life. Anyhow, when you started learning to drive, how did you apply yourself in that situation? Both hands on the wheel, remember? Yeah? At what degrees? 90 degrees? 30 degrees? Like that? Okay, like that then. And then, your rear view mirror, made sure that you could see what was behind you. Side mirrors. Only until you pass your test. After that, you don't need those mirrors. Isn't it? Right? So, got all those things ready. And then, who would you have sat next to you while you're driving, learning to drive? The driving instructor. Not your best friend. Why? Because when she gets started, or when he gets started, not your husband or your wife, you won't have that because when he or she gets started, now you can't pay attention to what you're doing because you're not used to this. Because this requires a lot of conscious thought cycles. So you have to pay complete attention to the road ahead of you and to the vehicles on the side of you, to your mirror, because you're learning to become aware of the size and length and width of your car. Isn't it? So you have to be very mindful of this. At the beginning, it is such. So you're not going to be willing to take any adventures. If the phone rings, what you likely do is pull up and take the phone, either answer it or switch off the phone even before you get into the car, because you're not going to answer calls and drive at the same time. Not that you should be doing it now. But that's a story for another day. Not that you should be doing it now. But back when you were learning to drive, you would never even consider it. Why? Because you were only getting used to it. It was new to you. But later on, what happened? After you got used to it, then you were able to hold a conversation and drive at the same time. Even later, you were able to work out your budget, you're working your monthly budget as you're driving. When you started to learn to drive, if they had asked you how many times you shifted gear, you could probably have told the person who asked you the question the exact number of times, because you did it with full consciousness and awareness, because you were very mindful about that. But now, to get here from home, how many times did you shift gear? Who knows? Did you even shift gear? You don't even know. You don't know whether you use the indicators. You can't remember any of them because it has become automatic. Now, even in your practice, there comes a point where you can be almost automatically, insightfully aware. But at the beginning, it will take you some time. It will take you some practice, and you'll have to be doing it consciously. At the beginning, it will take some effort. Because your tendency is to be unaware. Not unaware, but insightfully unaware. That's the tendency, to be insightfully unaware, but aware. The problem is not about your awareness, because you're always aware. You're always aware about something's going on around you. What is the problem? What are you lacking? Insightful awareness. Then what is insightful awareness? Because to be insightfully aware, first you must know what insightful awareness is. Insightful awareness, ladies and gentlemen, is your contemplation of your experience through the lens of anicca, dukkha and anatta. Not the mere words of anicca, dukkha and anatta. It's not like, you're looking at something and go, anicca, dukkha, anatta, anicca, dukkha, anatta, anicca, dukkha, anatta, anicca, dukkha, anatta. Not that. Because how can you have a conversation with someone in the back of your head while you're going anicca, dukkha, anatta, anicca, dukkha, anatta, anicca, dukkha? You can't do that. Not even if their names were anicca, dukkha, anatta. You still won't be able to do that. You can't do that. I mean, that's impossible. I've tried. It doesn't work. At the beginning of my practice, I used to try that. No, that's not how you meditate. It's not the words of anicca, dukkha, or anatta. It's the essence of it. It's the experience of it, not the words. For anicca to be almost your operating system, to borrow an analogy from the field of computing, it is, once it becomes your operating system, it becomes your status quo. It becomes your insightful awareness. It becomes your insight. Now, whether that has happened for you or not, only you know. But for that to happen within you, first of all, you need to be sure what anicca actually means. You need to know what anicca means. You need to have a full comprehension of what anicca actually means. So what does anicca mean to you? That is where we begin. Through anicca, you begin to understand the characteristic of dukkha. Through the characteristic of dukkha, you begin to understand the reality of anatta. ultimately you come to the conclusion of anatta. Anatta is a conclusion that you come to through your understanding of anicca and dukkha. And when you see color, and if you think that color is in the object, that is neither anicca nor dukkha nor anatta. Not sight, insight. If your worldview is that color is in the object, you're neither in anicca nor dukkha nor are you in anatta. That's why I said it's not just a trivial reflection that I asked you to do last Sunday. It is where your meditation can start and it is where your meditation could end. You can become an arahant just contemplating that and that alone. That and that alone is enough. Let's talk through how that is possible. Now this is the theory part, whereas that is the practical part. Which part is the practical part? Dinner. Your dinner is your practical part. So this theory is necessary if you're going to be doing your practicals. If you're not going to do your practicals, then theory is of no use, really. So I need you to start doing your practicals. Now, as you look at me, you can work on a practical. You can all see me from where you are, can't you? Look at this robe for now, for a second. What color do you see? I asked what color do you see, not what color is the robe. You see? Maroon. Okay. You see the color maroon. That statement is true. I see the color maroon. The statement is true. What's not true is for you to think that that color is the color of my robe. That's not true. So what color is my robe then, if it's not maroon? What color is my robe if it's not maroon? Under different lighting conditions, what color might it be? So it's maroon now under these lighting conditions. Under different lighting conditions, what color might my robe be? What color would my robe be under different lighting conditions? Listen carefully before you answer. I didn't ask you the question, what color might you see under different lighting conditions? I asked you, what color might my robe be under different lighting conditions? What color might my robe be? Huh? A different color? No color at all. Under white light? Yellow light? What about red light? What if you had all the colors of the rainbow pointing at me? Then what color might my robe be? Not what color might you see. They are very different questions. What color would my robe be if you shun all colors of the rainbow at me? What color might the robe be? No color at all. Are you just saying that because everyone else is saying the same thing? Or have you actually understood? Let's make sure you have understood. These materials, they only have pigments. They're pigments. Pigments have no color. Pigments, though, have the ability to reflect energy. That's what they do. They don't reflect color. They reflect energy. So when energy falls, where's that energy coming from? There's energy all over the place. Right? We call this light energy. Right? So when energy falls on this robe, there are pigments on this piece of cloth that absorbs some of that energy and reflects the rest of this. That energy travels and it reaches your eyes. Is color born there? Is color born in your eye? No. But there are receptors in your eyes. What are those receptors called? They're called photoreceptors. What are those receptors sensitive to? Red, green and? Red, green and? What are those receptors sensitive to? Red, green and? There's no color in the outside world, so how can it be receptive to red, green and blue? Those are tricky questions. Can they be sensitive to red, green and blue? Why not? Because red, green and blue don't exist in the outside world. So what good what good would it be for them to be receptive to red, green and blue? They're not receptive to red, green and blue. What are they receptive to? Energy. Different wavelengths of energy or different frequencies of energy. That's what they're receptive to. Not red, green or blue. So why do people say then there are red receptors, green receptors and blue receptors? Why do people say so? All of that is after the fact. Meaning, once you begin to see red, then you reverse engineer. You work your way back and see what was it that helped me see red. And then you call them red receptors. In the same way, you call this a red robe. Red happens within you, but you give this robe credit for it. Now you might wonder, Swaminathan, is this becoming a physics lesson? I did my A-levels, and I had enough of physics. I was sick and tired of physics, and I thought that was going to be it. I came to these Sunday sermons, so I just want some peace, right? Some tranquility, that's what I was looking for. And now you're talking physics again. This is not a physics lesson. I'm trying to convince you that you are nothing more than, fill in the blank, a chitta. That is why I said, in one line, that is Nibbāna. The acceptance that you are nothing more than a chitta. Why do I say that you have not attained Nibbāna yet? Because I'm on the high seat and you're on the low seat. Is that why? Why do I say that you have not attained Nibbāna yet? Because you are more than a chitta. That's why. What are you if you are more than a chitta? You are a man. Aren't you? Men in the room? Aren't you men? Men. Aren't you men? Yeah. And the women? Ladies? What are you? Ladies. So you're ladies and gentlemen. That's the problem. You think you're a lady. You think you're a gent. You think you're an adult. You think you're a child. Over and above that, you'll think all other sorts of things as well. You think you're a mother. Mothers, yes, agree? Mother? Yeah. Shall I prove the point to you? I can take your child with me to the monastery and then prove to you that you are the mother. Just the sheer thought of pulling your child away from you and your eyes start welling up. That's when we know she's the mother. You're only a chitta, but you think you're a mother. Something's gone wrong. It's my task to save you from this lunacy. This is the Gateway Mental Asylum. So, you asylum seekers, welcome. Are you insulted? I already answered that question at the beginning of the sermon. I only speak with love. The more you begin to understand the profoundness of these words and the more it begins to ignite that insightful awareness within you, the more you will appreciate, my God, Swaminathan, where were you all my life? So may these words resonate between your ears. May it reach the deepest corners of your heart. And may it tug at your heartstrings. May it awaken the awareness that is always inside of you. It's there. You just need to awaken the beast that's inside of you. You have it within you, ladies and gentlemen. It's my task simply to awaken you. That's it. I cannot give you something you don't have. I'm merely awakening the wisdom that lies within you. Each of you is blessed with a Buddha. But that Buddha is asleep. You are the sleeping Buddha. You've seen the laughing Buddhas, right? At Rajagiriya we have sleeping Buddhas. So I have come to wake up the Buddha. Wake up all you Buddhas, for it is time for you to seek your salvation. It is sheer lunacy, ladies and gentlemen, for you to think that you are a mother. I know that you can't shake it off just like that, but at least come to awareness that it is flawed for you to feel that way. I love the mothers here. Shall I tell you something? I love you more than your child will ever love you. I say that to all the mothers in this room. Your child cannot love you as much as I do because I'm here to try and kill the mother within you. Your child always wants to keep the mother within you. If you're sad and worried and bothered, or rather if your child is sad and worried and bothered, and if you are unshaken by that, how do you think your child's going to feel? Your child is really shaken to the core, right? He's crying, he's screaming, having a tantrum. And you are just full chill, like you've taken a chill pill, right? You're just as cool as a cucumber, right? What would your child feel in that instance? He would feel forsaken, wouldn't he? Then that can't be love. That is the only love that your child knows. So therefore, that is the love with which he or she would treat you. But for me, that would be the day that I celebrate. Your child is throwing a tantrum, he's having a hissy fit, and you are as if nothing could bother you. That's the day that I would celebrate. These sermons are actually doing something to people. That's what I want for you. That is not to say that you will not fulfill your duty. Please don't entangle duty and suffering, and it's not one and the same. Your duties, responsibilities, right? They are very separate affairs to your mental suffering. Let's make sure that we don't muddy the waters. These two things are not one and the same. If you're a wife in this room and you have a husband, you have a duty towards your wife. You have a responsibility towards your wife, and do fulfill them to the best of your ability, or at least until he remains with you. Just saying. I mean, you've got to caveat these things, right? Who knows? Because if he's also here, then, next thing you know, he might come back with me to the monastery. Who knows? Or it might be you, right? So if you're the husband in the room, right? Let's make it fair. Right? If you are the husband in the room and you have a wife, then please fulfill your duties and responsibilities towards her to the best of your abilities, or at least until she is with you. But don't assume that your fulfilling duties and responsibilities means that when he's hurt, you have to be hurt. I have seen some couples where they expect that from each other. And all I have is one word to say about that. And that word is yuck. Promptly followed by the question, you call that love? You call that love? I'm hurt, so I expect the person who I love to also be hurt. You call that love? All you want is sympathy. That's not love. That's selfishness. That's like if I'm hurt, I don't want others to be happy. Because then it makes me feel like, I'm a failure. But if everyone else is also hurt, then it doesn't make me feel as much a failure. That is the ego. That is the ego. It's a dirty bugger. Catch it in its tracks. Be mindful. Be mindfully aware. Be insightfully aware of what ego does to you. If you're in business, it's okay if everyone in your business, your venture, all of the stakeholders also have to suffer part of the loss. But if it's just you and everyone else has ended up profiting that year, then very disappointing. Because an egoistical mind does not like to suffer if everyone else around in the room is enjoying themselves. It's okay to suffer as long as everyone else is also suffering. Terrible, isn't it? You don't like this to happen to you, do you? I mean, even when I say these things out loud, don't you feel like, it's cringe, I feel like, I really don't want that happening to me. But it does. It's cringeworthy, what I'm sharing with you. I know you don't like it, but it's what's going on with you. Can I give you an example? A classic example, right? Let's go back to our school days. Term tests are done and the results are in. You get your report card. You open your report card up and it looks like you've done pretty bad this time. What's the next thing you want to know? Tell me. What's the next thing you want to know? How has everyone else done? So you walk up to your peer, right, or your best friend. You ask, "Can I see your scorecard? Can I have a look?" At that point, if he or she says, "Well, you know what? I got much better grades than I got last time," you will force a smile on your face. Because that's what you're supposed to do. You will force a smile on your face, but inside you can't help but weep, cry, because you feel that you are a failure. That is not you, that's ego. That's why I'm trying to save you from ego. I know you don't like ego either. I know that. Otherwise you wouldn't be coming to these sermons. Aren't you here for suicide? Aren't you all here for suicide? Meaning, you're here to kill yourselves, right? Yourselves. That's what you're here for. Yeah. So, I know that you don't enjoy, you don't like what ego does to you, but you can't help it because you have to live with it. It's there with you. It's like a tick that's hanging on you. So it keeps on sucking your blood. You want to get it off, but it won't come off so easily. You try pulling it out, but it doesn't. It doesn't come off just like that. We have some work to do. So this is tick powder. This is the Dhamma. As you begin to contemplate, understand and comprehend the Dhamma, the ticks will fall. You don't have to pull it out. They say don't pull the ticks out, because if you do, if you break it with its, what do you call it? Not the sting, but the stingers. What do you call it? Stings. Those things. If you pull the tick and you break it by its head, with its stings still in your skin, then that wound would take a long time to heal, and it might not even heal at all. Because actually you've not fixed the problem. Sometimes you might have even made it worse. So the best thing to do is to use some tick powder. This is the Dhamma. You leave it there. And then what's going to happen? It's like, now when we first arrived at the monastery, about 8 years ago, there were lots and lots and lots of, leeches. Everywhere we went, there were leeches to greet us and welcome us. There were lots of them, leeches all over the place. And now, I hadn't had that much experience with leeches. So what I used to do was when there was a leech, I'd pull it off. And apparently that's the last thing you ought to do when a leech hangs on your skin. The last thing you ought to do is pull it off, because if you break it and it's because I used to be very sensitive to those things, and then it would create an allergic reaction, and it would get very messy. Then someone taught me a very simple trick. They said all you have to do is just put a little bit of soap. Just put a little bit of soap, and then the leech thinks, thank you very much, I only wanted a shower. So you got the water, got the soap, cleans itself, and now it goes. Then it lets go by itself. So I assume that, it probably hurts the leech when you put soap on it. Maybe it's very caustic, and so it hurts the leech. So what I used to do is once the leech got up, I put some water on it just to make sure that the soap wasn't hurting the poor animal, Poor thing. It doesn't want to hurt me, it just wants to feed itself, right? So that's what I used to do. But anyhow, it was a lesson. It was a lesson in life. It was a lesson in Dhamma. You can't break your ego off, ladies and gentlemen. It will come off when you're ready. As much as you don't like what ego does to you, I'm afraid you can't simply pluck it out. You can't pluck it out like that. You can't pull it off. You can't shake it off. You just have to let it fall like the leaves in autumn. They'll fall. All you have to do is imbibe the Dhamma. Let the Dhamma work its magic. So for that you need to listen to the Dhamma, bear the Dhamma, practice the Dhamma, contemplate the Dhamma. That's what you have to do. So your egos will one day quieten, and then it will silence. And then one day you will wake up one morning and think, Vidya Dittamatta. I can see, but I don't feel like it is I who's seeing. That will happen to you. I can hear, but I don't feel like it's I who's hearing. But that will happen to you. That day will come. You can't suppress the I while it's still there. Don't try to do that. Because it's the I who's trying to suppress the I anyways. So you can't do that. It's pointless. It really is pointless. Don't try to do that. Like, don't try to force yourself to not think that it is you. If you get what I mean? So you have a sense of self. Don't try to force yourself to not think that you're a self, because even when you're doing that, it's still you who's trying to force yourself not to think it's you. It makes no sense at all what I just said there, right? Exactly. So if me saying it out loud makes no sense, then you doing it makes no sense at all. So don't bother doing that. Just let the Dhamma work its magic. Can I share another analogy with you? When you do your washing, you take a bucket of water, you put your dirty laundry in there, and then you leave it a little, you put some powder, say soap powder, and then you leave your clothes in there, and you leave it for a while, don't you? To soak, and you just leave it there. You leave it there for the soap to do its magic. Because the soap particles, as they dissolve in the water, right, they reach all of the little places in your fabric. And wherever there's dirt, it starts to work its thing, and the dirt particles come off. So that's why you leave it in water, in soap water. You immerse it in soap water. And once you've left it there for a while, the next thing you ought to do is you throw the soap water out, but now the cloth is soapy. Then what do? You wash it again. This time not to get the dirt off, but to get the soap off. That's a very fitting analogy to what you're supposed to do in this asana. Let me relate that to what we are talking about here. Initially, you must let your mind immerse in the Dhamma. The Dhamma is a soap. Dhamma is a soap. So the soap will do its magic. And then dirt will start coming out. Raga will start coming out. Dvesha will start coming out. Moha will start coming out. And then once you give it a good shake, that's what you do when you contemplate, when you go to the Valley Maluva, right? That's what we do here. We don't just leave it in the Dhamma, but we try and give it a bit of a shake, right? And then after that, you throw the soap out, but now there's soap in the cloth, so you have to rinse it with clean water. So once you're done with what you're supposed to do with soap, just as you wash the cloth to get rid of the soap, once you're done with what you're supposed to do with the Dhamma, what must you do? You let go of the Dhamma. Because Dhamma is like soap. Dhamma is not Nibbāna. And then you're simply left with a cloth with water, no soap. Then what is the last thing you do? Yes? You? What do you call it? No, you've rinsed to get the water out? Squeeze, yes. You squeeze the cloth and then you put it on the cloth line. To do what? To dry, meaning to get rid of the water this time. See, first goes the dirt, then goes the soap, then goes the water. So in this analogy, the soap was the Dhamma, or rather the dirt was the defilements, the soap was the Dhamma. What's the water then? The water is noble association. Kalyanamitta Sevana. Association with noble people. Do you recall when the great Anandathera asked the Buddha, isn't half of the sasana dependent on the association with the Kalyanamitta? But what did the Buddha say? No, Ananda, not so. The entirety of the sasana is dependent on association with the Kalyanamitta. In other words, there will come a day where you're free of these heavy defilements and all you'll be left with is your attachment to the Dhamma. And who's going to save you then? Once again, noble association. So noble association is the last thing to get rid of. What's the first thing that you come across? When you put that cloth into the bucket, what's the first thing the cloth came into contact with? Water. What's the last thing the cloth is going to be in contact with? Water again. So at the beginning, in the middle, at the end, what was always there? Water. So then tell me, noble association. At the beginning, in the middle, at the end, what's going to be there? Noble association. Natti me saranang ganyan, sangho me saranang vara. See, noble association has every part to play on your path to Nibbana. Every part to play. Not a small part, not a big part, not a huge part. What part? Every part. Every part to play. You have to wonder why people like myself and some people who used to come along to these sermons are now at the monastery. Now we have but a handful of you. Full-time practitioners of Nibbana. Hint, hint. That's all they come for, noble association. Because you need noble association at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end. Even when your effort is finally to get rid of Dhamma, your attachment to Dhamma, because that can be very, very difficult to get rid of. Because the Dhamma is so joyful, so exhilarating. It's almost like a trance. Once you get into the depths of the Dhamma and you start contemplating the Dhamma in your head, it can almost feel like you're in a trance. And then to come out of that, you need a noble association to shake you, and wake up. That's not Nibbāna, that's just the Dhamma. A lot of anagamis, they get stuck at anagami level without the ability to proceed into arahathood because of their attachment to the Dhamma, because they're not attached to anything else at that point. They've gotten rid of most of their defilements. But then the Dhamma becomes food for their existence. It becomes the food that feeds their sense of self. The Dhamma feeds that. So why am I talking to you about this? You're almost there now, right? You've given up your food, you've given up your friends, you've given up your all other sensual defilements and all that. Now it's just Dhamma you're attached to, right? So it's time to get rid of that. Right? So why am I talking about these things with you? Just because I like to hear myself as I say these things out loud to you. Because the journey to Nibbāna is a very blissful one. If the journey is so blissful, I can't imagine how blissful the destination must be. And this is an encouragement and enticement, if you like. This is what awaits you for when you're ready. But for the time being, let's go back to the dinner plate. Meditation. To meditate is to be what aware? Just aware? Insightfully aware. Okay, so you know what awareness is? You do know what awareness is. I'm going to draw your 5 senses. Okay? So I've just drawn an eye, a ear, a nose, a tongue, and Hulk's hand. So, your 5 sense organs. These are the external representations of your faculties, but you need to know that it is not these things that actually make it possible for you to see, smell, hear, taste, or any of those things. These are just the external representations of your senses. Okay, you know that it is not this eye that sees. There's a rupa. There's a very subtle form of eye, which is closer to the mind. But for the time being, we can work with these as well, not a problem. These come into contact with worldly objects. What do they come into contact with? An eye comes into contact with? Well, let's just call it an object, just to keep things simple. When I say object, just think that these are the objects that your senses would be receptive to. Okay? So here we are talking about light. Here we are talking about, don't say sound now. Huh? Vibrations, yes, because sound does not occur here, does it? So, back to the eye again. So here this color. Color, right? No, thank you. These are just, again, vibrations. These are energies, vibrations, okay? These are, again, vibrations. What about nose? Now, when it comes to the nose, now actually what you have here are shapes. There are shapes which are complementary. So your nose has a particular structure, and into these structures slot like a lock and key. They are complementary shapes, so that's how smell works, that's how taste works. And when it comes to touch, again, you can touch. So when touch works, the way touch works is, you have these receptors and they are sensitive to pressure or they're sensitive to heat. These are the two things that your skin is sensitive, not your skin, but the tactile receptors on your skin. Right? So this is not a science lesson. It is simply to get you to the conclusion. That is where I want you to be. But this is the journey that we have to take. So when these things come into contact, what is the product of this? In one word, we could call it a chitta, or consciousness. This is what we call awareness. Awareness. So I'm going to draw awareness. I'll move the object over to this side. Awareness. Don't concern yourself about the shape of it. This is merely to give you the idea that it arises and passes away. So you could think of it's like a graph. Here on the time axis, and here energy. Okay, so this is like a bout of energy. It arises and it passes away. And soon after, there's another chitta, and then another chitta, and then another chitta. So all we have is a series of chittas. Each of these chittas, ladies and gentlemen, is capable of consciousness. Conscious. In other words, it's capable of awareness. So when an object comes into contact with the eye, isn't that a change of energy in the outside world? So something's happened in the outside world, hasn't it? Something's happened. We don't know what's happened yet, but something's happened. So when these somethings that happen in the outside world, when they become of interest, now you need a mechanism to become aware of them. So there's a really interesting point here. See if you can get this into your heads. I'll ask a few questions to help you come to your own understanding about this, right? This is a chitta. When a chitta occurs, there is now awareness in this world. This is the world. What you see on this whiteboard is the world. Okay, this is the remit of the world that we're talking of. Until I draw this chitta, is there awareness? Is there awareness in this world? This is the world. Is there awareness in this world? No. But an object has come into contact with the eye. That is all that has happened. But there's no awareness. If there was no awareness, would there be color? Would there be color? But there's an object and that has been put in front of your eye. Would there not be color? What do you think? Once again, let me ask you the question once again. If there was no awareness in this world, okay, there are no chittas in this world, but yet an object comes into contact with the eye, would there be color in this world? Would there? No. Why not? Exactly. Color is merely an interpretation. So now it's time to redefine what you mean by color. All this time you thought color was something that was on this subject. That's how you always thought about color. You had a box of color pencils. Remember when you were younger? Got your mom to bring you a box of color pencils, and then you spent your day coloring things. And you thought that was part of the characteristic of an object. But what I want you to understand now is color is not a characteristic of an object. Color is an interpretation of a change that has happened in this world. This is a completely new paradigm. The world that you have always known and the world to which I'm now holding your hand and walking you into are completely different worlds. They are polar opposites of each other. Because your definition of color is now about to collapse if you accept mine. Or you can just reject mine and continue living with whatever definition you already have. Let's go back to your world for a second. What is color in your world? It's what makes this world rich, isn't it? Vivid, fun, joyful, enjoyable. It's what we like to see. It's what we like to dress ourselves in. It's what our food should be, colorful, right? It's what the sky should be, colorful. That's why you go to the beach to watch the sunset. That nice contrast in colors, right? It's out there, isn't it? It's out there. Isn't that your current understanding of color? It's out there. Right, let's go back into my world for a second. Where's color? Is it out there? No. Color is not even born until a chitta is born. So if color is not born until a chitta is born, can it be out there? No. All that is out there, ladies and gentlemen, is energy. That's it. One could say energy and mass, but didn't Professor Einstein do us a favor? What did he do? He brought the two phenomena together and he said they're one and the same. So he introduced a formula. It's arguable these days whether it's accurate, and people are having many discussions about it, but let's just keep it simple. He couldn't have been way off of the truth, right? He was somewhere in the right ballpark, right? So E equals mc squared. I think we've heard this more than any other principle or theorem or law we've ever come across. So E equals mc squared is very much common these days. It's out there, everyone knows about it. So what does he do with that? What he said was energy is mass and mass is energy. In other words, they are interconvertible. So say, that was the proposition. You could convert mass to energy, you could convert energy back to mass, and so on. So in other words, what you could say, to keep it very simple, out there everything is energy. So if everything is energy out there, why do you need a chitta? What can you do with a chitta if all there is out there is energy? You can use chittas to interpret changes in energy. You can measure energy. We measure energy in joules. It's getting scientific again. My background is in science, so that is the natural tendency to go start talking physics and so on. So I'll reel myself back in. But there's changes in energy. It's like, when you switch on the fan and you have the regulator. What do you do with the regulator? If it's not cold enough, you turn it up, right? And how does that make the fan go faster? You give more energy. In other words, now there's more energy in the system. Because there's more energy in the system, now the fan's turning faster. If it's too fast, what do you do? If it's blowing you away, now what do? You turn it down. So you're removing energy from the system. So now you see that you can make changes to the amount of energy in a system. Right, so this is the world. Okay? And we are making changes to energy. Now these lights, for instance, they could be made brighter or they could be made dimmer. There's a switch or some kind of dial. If you turn it up the right way, it'll either go down or up. These speakers, they have a controller there. So as you turn the knob up, then the sound goes up. In other words, there's more energy. So you can see that we can make changes to energy, can't we? Are we all in agreement with that? What do you do when you eat food? What do you do when you eat food? What are you actually eating? Is it food? What are you actually taking in? Energy. You can call it an apple, but what you're actually consuming is what? Energy. So energy that was out there, you're now taking and putting it inside of you. And that energy, if not consumed, what happens? It turns into mass, solid. And that's how you put on. That's why they say you must exercise to keep in line with the amount of energy you consume. If you don't burn as much energy as you take in, then you keep getting bigger. Hasn't life taught you that already? And if you consume more than you take in, then what happens? You shrink. in size and it becomes thin or slim. So what do doctors say? Be mindful about the amount of energy. This is an energy transaction that we do, ladies and gentlemen. It's not, we like to talk about food, but actually it's not food that we eat. These are all merely conventional truths about the absolutism of energy transactions that are going on in the outside world. That's all that's really going on. But we talk about this in our own conventional language. You've never eaten any food. All you've done is stuck some energy into you. That's all. So when a lion sees you, what does it think you are? So when it sees you and it's an energy bar. So it thinks, oh right, energy, I need it. And so it eats you. That's what it does. So all that's going on is that. So the sun is a source of energy. And so when photosynthesis happens, plants have the ability to pack energy up into fruit and parts of the plant. That's why when you eat it, you take in energy, and we call it the number of calories. Right, back to Sunday morning from physics class. Right, so then what does awareness do? What is awareness really? Changes of energy. Then let's redefine what color is. Because you are in love with color. I know you are. I know you're in love with color. That's why you paint your walls a particular color. That's why your cars are a particular color. That's why your sofa is a particular color. That's why your curtains are a particular color. That's why you color your hair a certain way. That's why your carpets are a particular color. That's why your ceiling's a particular color. That's why your roof is a particular color. Your roofing sheets, they have colors. Yeah, you go to your flower bed and then you have a gamut of colors. It's like you love your colors. That's why you have a color TV at home. What was wrong with black and white TVs? Tell me which one sounds more appealing to you, white rice or yellow rice? Okay, of these two, which one sounds more appealing? There's rice, white rice, but chopped vegetables separately. Okay, so some carrots, some leeks, chopped and served separately. Then there's rice, but mixed rice. All of that, but mixed into the rice and cooked together. Which one is more appealing? The mixed rice or the fried rice. Why? That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm talking about. You are a bunch of? Yeah. Welcome to Gateway. Asylum. Yes. So, what do chittas do? They pick up changes in energy. That is what your eye does. Your eye has never seen color. Never, and it will never do. Color is merely an interpretation. It is not the only interpretation. There can be many interpretations, just like language. Just like language. So if I say love, in whichever languages you know, you can translate this into the languages that you know. And then love is only love in English, but it will be other things in other languages. Won't it? So it's how you interpret it. In the same manner, changes in energy can be interpreted in multiple ways. For instance, pay particular attention to the word for instance. Why? Because that's just one way to interpret it. It's not special. So for instance, color can be interpreted, beg your pardon, changes of energy can be interpreted as color. That interpretation only happens in your mind. That is color, not the color black I mean. That's not what I'm trying to say. That is color. Sorry, are we on the same wavelength here? When I say that is color, I don't mean, well, of course that is color, I just drew it in color. That's not what I mean. I mean, color has now just come into your world. It didn't until a chitta was born. Until consciousness was born, until awareness happened, color never happened. Color didn't happen. But is that the only way a change of energy could be interpreted? Is that the only way? No. What if that object came into contact with the ear? Wouldn't interpretation happen still? It would. Only this time round, we wouldn't call it color. What would we call it? We would call it sound. So how is color so special, or how is it so different to sound? How is color so different to sound? Can I ask you a question in these words, right? Do you know what the word pyar means? Pyar. It's Hindi. Pyar, now you know. Pyar is love. Okay, so now you know that word. If I were to say, I love you, or I would say, main tumse pyar karu. Won't these two things mean the same thing to you? The feeling that you get when I say these two things, wouldn't they mean the same to you? Or I say, te amor. That's in Spanish. Means I love you. Wouldn't that mean the same to you? Mang obata adare. That's in Sinhalese. If you could understand these languages, wouldn't they mean the same to you? They would. But aren't they just simply different interpretations of the same message? It's the same thing going on here. So, can I ask you this question? Which would you rather I tell you, main tumse pyar karo, or I love you? If you had a difference, in other words, if one was more special than the other, there's a problem there. Then there would be a problem there. Because to someone who understands all these languages, they must mean the same thing. It shouldn't matter which way or in which language one speaks to you, as long as the message is conveyed. Agreed? Agreed? Thank you. So in the same way, if a change of energy, it is interpreted inside of you, either as sight, or as sound, or as smell, or as taste, or as touch, what's the deal? What's the big deal? Aren't they all the same thing, just interpreted differently? It's the same message, interpreted differently. It's quite striking that this is so distinctly true when we talk about smell up here and taste. Oh, it's just a joke. Once you start looking into how these two faculties work, ladies and gentlemen, it's just a joke, a complete tomfoolery of the mind. Permit me to explain to you. We have talked about this in the past, but I'll remind you once again. These are merely shapes. Shapes, they come into contact with shapes in your nose, complementary shapes in your nose receptors, or smell receptors we call them. And then there are complementary shapes that come into contact with taste receptors. They're on your tongue. Once again, same shape, but different receptors. It's simply because the wiring is different inside your body, you perceive one as smell and the other as taste. What a joke. When the irony is, neither of these two things exist in the outside world. That's like reading a news article in English and then saying, I wonder if I read it in Sinhalese whether it would say something different. So I'm going to read the Sinhala paper as well. It's like that. Some people do that though, don't they? Like they watch the news they watch the Sinhala news, then they watch the English news. Just in case. But they are translated by qualified, certified translators to make sure that it's verbatim, word for word, it's the same message to ensure standardization. So it's the same message that is conveyed in both languages. But people, just to be on the safe side, They say they watch the news in both languages. It's the same thing going on here. Now you laugh at that, but you think this is okay. How many times have you smelled something and then put it in your tongue to taste it? It's a joke. It's a real joke. And the joke's on you. That's why I want you to figure this out. Take this on board. Come out of your blind awareness. Step into insightful awareness. See, your awareness is you picking up sight. That's awareness. Now you're aware that something's going on out there. When you pick up sound, now you're aware. Actually, you don't pick up sound, but you perceive sound. When you perceive sound, now you're aware that something's going on out there. When you perceive smell, now you know, now you're aware that something's going on out there. But are you insightfully aware? Are you? Are you? No. When you smell something, now you're aware that something's going on out there, rather. When you taste something, now you're aware that something's going on out there. But are you insightfully aware? Are you? No, then tell me, what is insightful awareness? It's the stuff that we've just been talking about. When you know, when you truly know that none of these things were actually going on out there. These are all merely interpretations, mental interpretations of energy changes in the outside world. Then here's what happens to you. You lose the intrinsic value that you have given to the sense of sight, because it no longer feels special to you. Today, you fear going blind. Yes or no? Just the thought of going blind. How does that make you feel? Just think of that, just the thought of going blind. You don't even want to think about it, do you? Or the thought of going deaf. Just imagine, your daughter, your daughter comes running up to you and say, "Ami, I can't see a thing. Ami, I can't see a thing. Ami, I can't see a thing." I say, "No, don't worry, Putta, don't worry. Let's just sit down. Let's see what's going on. Right? Can you see me waving at you?" "No, Ami, I can't see a thing." "Really?" "Yeah, I can't see a thing." "Okay, let's take you to the doctor." Then they take you to the doctor. And then the doctor does some examinations, and the doctor says, "Mrs. Pera," random name, "I'm sorry to say, but your daughter's gone blind." Which mother in this room is prepared to hear that news from the doctor? Put your hand up. You can't be a mother then, if you're prepared to hear that news about your daughter. You can't be a mother then. If you're prepared to hear that news, either you're a heartless mother or you have killed the mother within you. The first one is not so good, but the second one gets my respect. This is not something you want to hear. Just say, your child, your son, you're talking to him and he won't respond. And you think he's just being stubborn. "Hey, I'm talking to you." And he just doesn't bat an eyelid. Completely ignores you. "Hello, mister, I'm talking to you. When I talk to you, I'm your mother. You will look at me." He's just completely ignoring you. Then you go and tap him on the shoulder. He turns around. "Oh, when did you come?" He asks. And then he realizes that as he speaks, he can't hear a thing. So he's gone deaf. He can't hear himself speak. Now he's worried. He says, I can't hear. Can you hear me?" Okay, if you're deaf, you can't hear yourself. So he tries to speak, he can't hear himself, and then he says he can't hear what you're saying, and all he sees is you moving your lips, but he can't work out what you're saying, and then he just breaks down, completely, shattered. And then he says, "I can't hear you, I don't know what's going on, please help me, I can't hear you." So then you get worried, you sit him down and say, "Putta, it's all right, don't worry, relax, don't worry." So you whisper something to his ear, you say something close to his ear, "Can you hear me now?" No response. Then what do you do next? Drop everything and take him to the hospital. You take him for a checkup. And then the doctors do their scans and they do their sound test, hearing test, whatever, and they say ultimately, no, your son's gone deaf. Which father in this room is happy to hear that? Not happy, but I can't say happy, but which father in this room is prepared? Listen, okay, I'm okay to receive that sort of news. No. Why not? Because the sense of hearing is very special to you. See, all the other four senses are still working. Just fine. When your daughter went blind, her sense of hearing was still okay, her sense of smell was okay, her sense of taste was okay, her sense of touch was okay. What's the problem? Four senses okay, just one sense not working. I mean, come on, 1 out of 5, it's not too bad, is it? 4 out of the 5 senses are still working. What's the problem? I know what you're thinking. It's easy for you to say so, but when you're in that situation, when the problem's not yours, everyone's a philosopher. No, the reason here is, to you, the sense of sight, the sense of smell, the sense of touch, each of these things are very special. They're very special. They are part and parcel of your own existence. In other words, you exist to see. You exist to hear, to smell, to taste, to touch. You can't imagine a world without these things, can you? And I keep saying you. This is not an attack on you, okay? It's just a figure of speech. Not you, you. Can I ask you a question? Why do you like living? Why do you like being alive? Of course. You enjoy being alive because you can see, hear, smell, taste, feel, and think. If you were to shut down these faculties, if you couldn't see, hear, smell, taste, or feel, what would life be like for you? Not worth? Exactly. So why is it worth living now then? Because you can do these things. Then to think, ladies and gentlemen, that they are all the same thing, just interpreted differently. Just think about it for a second. None of these things that you perceive actually exist in the outside world. These are merely your interpretations of energy changes that happen in the outside world. There's no color in the outside world, for heaven's sake, come on. What's your deep and soul-enriching attachment to color, when color does not even exist out there? Why do you pick your car based on color? Why do you pick your carpets based on color? Why do you pick your curtains based on color? Why do you pick your cushions based on color? Why do you pick your meals, your pasta? Why do you pick your papadums based on color? Think about it. When all that is just energy changes. Flows of energy interpreted in your own little world. Did you know that the color that you see, nobody else sees? The color that you see, no one else in this room sees. You're the only one who sees the color that you see. So you're thinking, wait, Swaminatha, so this is blue to me but green to somebody else? No. Everyone has learned to call this color blue. That's it. Who's to say that we all see the same color? We've just all decided to call this blue. Do you get the point? How can you check that your blue is someone else's blue? Where's the answer key to this question? How can you check? How could you check that your blue is somebody else's blue? Could you? No. Your blue is your blue, someone else's blue is their blue. But you both have learned to call the color you see blue. That's why you call it blue. Not because it is blue. Because your blue is your blue. You're the only one who sees this blue. Now, how special is blue then? It's merely your interpretation of a change of energy that's going on out there. The whole point of this conversation is to question. This is to question. This is to question why you give so much value to these sensory inputs in your world. Why has color become such a big deal in your world? What color do you like your jewelry? Why do you like gold? Why do you like wearing gold? Now, don't you all hide whatever you have. It's not necessary. Right? It's fine. This is not about making physical changes to your lives. This is about making psychological transformations. Right? Wear all the gold you want. You don't have to take off any of it. Right? Wear all the gold you want. It's not about that. Some like silver, others like gold. What's the deal? Some like diamonds. What's the deal? It's just a stone. I mean, it's a rock. It's a flipping rock. What's a gem after all? Huh? Which one do you protect more? Your husband? Or the diamond that he has gifted you? You know, you wouldn't throw the diamond across the street, would you? But you will park your car on the other side of the road when the shop is on the other side. You're like, hey, can you get off and quickly go and get some milk for us? But you wouldn't do that to your diamonds. But what is a diamond after all? It's just a rock. It's just a rock. I mean, you're a human being and that's just a rock. What's a gem? Just a rock. And gold? It's just a bit of metal. Silver? Just a bit of metal. So how come the whole world, even on the stock market, they trade gold prices and silver prices, and what's the deal? All perceived value. These things have no intrinsic value. Let me tell you the only thing that has intrinsic value. To you. The only thing I want to have you know, that the only thing that has intrinsic value to you, ladies and gentlemen, is your consciousness. That is it. But people are prepared to sacrifice their consciousness in the pursuit of gold. They will work hard, they will toil, they will labor. They will steal if they have to. Theft is you sacrificing your mental peace. They will steal if they have to, if they can get hold of a bit of a rock. Just a rock. There are probably planets, whole planets made out of them, somewhere in the galaxy. Maybe there's a whole planet that's made of diamond. On that planet, what do you think the price of diamonds are? On a planet made of diamonds, what do you think the price of diamond is? What value do you think they give to diamonds? No value at all. But when you see a diamond, a girl's best friend, right? When you see a diamond, don't you feel special though? Don't you feel that this is a very special thing? Because as it's cut and it has its fine cuts, and you hold it up to the light, and how it glitters. That sight The sight of it. It's pretty, isn't it? And a gold necklace, it's very pretty, isn't it? When all sight is an interpretation of a change of energy. Look at what happens when you misinterpret, misunderstand, and lose insightful awareness. And you are merely aware. With mere awareness and no insightful awareness, look at what has happened with your lives. Today you wear a bit of metal on your neck and you walk down the street worried that someone might come and snatch it off you. Today you go to the shop, you spend your hard-earned money. It's hard-earned because you have to work hard to earn it. You go to a shop, you go to the jeweler's, you buy some rocks, and then you bring it home, and you put it into a drawer, you lock it, and you put that drawer in another drawer, and you lock that. And then you put it in another drawer, and you lock that, and you ask your husband, like he's the Bhairavaya, to look after it. And then you put some CCTV cameras to make sure that no one gets in there. And then on top of all of that, you might even hire a security firm, right? And you have a security guard at the gate to make sure that no one trespasses, just in case they get hold of your rocks. Say it out loud. Rocks. Pathetic. Why, oh why do you do this to yourselves? Please wake up. Please wake up. How many of these are you willing to sacrifice to get hold of a rock? I mean, if you want a rock, just pick up a pebble on your way home. These are all only perceived value. If you as a wife could come to this awareness, you would make your husband's life that much better. Ask the husbands. Ask the husbands if you can go up to your husband and say, my darling husband, right? All these years, for my birthdays, for our anniversaries and all sorts, right? You got me diamonds and gems and gold and silver and all that. Today I have come to this realization that these chittas are merely interpretations of energy changes that go in the outside world. All these years you fooled me with rocks and pieces of metal. Today I have realized, I have come to this realization that there is no intrinsic value in any of these things. So, how about, instead of you doing all of that nonsense, right? Because of course, you wanted to treat me because I was fooled. But the only thing of value is the consciousness. The only path to heaven is the consciousness. The only path to liberation is your consciousness. The only path to Nibbāna, your salvation, is your consciousness. Let's not sacrifice these on the altar of rocks and pieces of metal. Let's save that time together. Let's not go spending and wasting our money on those things. Let's save the money and therefore let's save the time. Let's take that time and go and work on our salvation together. If you could say that to your husbands, if you could say that to your wives, see, with awareness, with insightful awareness, you can have a better, happier married life. If not Nibbāna, at least that. Let's be fair, this is just perceived value. There's no value to be found in gems or diamonds or gold. It's one thing to keep it as investment. That's you can save your, because you have to invest and diversify your investments and all sorts. Yeah, I get that. When I was a layman, I had a collection of gold coins which I used to keep because we used to use that in case. I always had planned myself for all eventualities because I had my retirement plan for 40. I was not going to work a day beyond 40. And it was all planned out, worked out. And then life took a complete different change. I still have planned my retirement for 40. 2 more years to go. But now in a different way. Plans haven't changed, just objectives have changed, that's all. Anyhow, so when I used to be a layman back then, I used to have a collection of gold coins as a diversification of my investments. But that was what that was for. It's okay, that's okay. I'm saying that's okay. But if you want gold for something more than that, meaning if you want that because you think it looks nice on you, because you like the color of gold, you like gold, what's there to like in gold is my question. What's there to like in a gem? It's a stone, it's just a stone. It's just cut and polished, that's all, it's just a stone. All of this is merely conventional value. Here is the absolute value. What I have a grudge with is when people sacrifice this. At the expense of this, they go after things of conventional value. Those things have no intrinsic value, meaning they have no value for you anyway. So this is awareness then. Think about that, okay? That's just a bonus lesson from today. Think about it. Next time you go shopping, think about what you want to get for your wife. See, don't you think, gentlemen, that it would be a good investment for you to bring your wife to Rajagiriya on Sunday mornings? Don't you think it would be a good investment? Tell me all the things it would save you. Shopping. Forgotten anniversaries. That's a big one, right? And you forget that it's your anniversary and then they pretend like it's not. But then the day after the anniversary, they say, they just put up a long face and then you have to work out what's going on. Because they won't tell you straight. You have to ask them what's what. No, nothing. No, what? Honestly, what's going on? No, nothing. So somehow, let's say you work it out. Now you see, if you brought them to Rajagiriya, I would be able to explain to them there is no such thing called an anniversary. Because how can it be that one cycle around the sun makes something special? Like an event happens and then the earth goes, it's not you going around the sun, the earth goes around the sun. You just happen to be on earth. It was not your decision to go around the sun. Like the earth goes around the sun, you're on that earth just perchance. And then, just because the earth's done all the hard work, you deserve a necklace. Help me understand the logic behind that. What was the effort that you put in to deserve an anniversary gift? It was the earth that went around the sun. So that's the thing, bring them to Sunday. Sundays are Rajagiriya sermons. I will explain these truths to them. And the wives, bring your husbands in. Let me talk to them. If they are fussy about their meals, if they say, today also, bread and dal curry. Every day, bloody bread and dal curry. Can't we have something else for a change? Is this all your mother taught you how to cook? Does it ring some bells? Right? Bring them in. Bring them in on Sunday. I will sit down and we'll talk. We'll have a chat. And I'll explain to them this. What will I explain to them? That what you're looking for in your food does not exist in food. Nutrition exists in food, but that's not what you're particular about. That's not what you're fussing about. All this fuss is about your taste and smell, right? Those things are not in the food. If that's not in the food, then it's your job to do it for yourselves. So what should the wife really be saying? Smell and taste are not things that I can give you. It's not in the food anyway. So I'll give you whatever I give you. You go make your own taste and smell. That conversation will have some meaning after he has listened to this sermon. I promise you, ladies and gentlemen, if you begin to understand these truths, right, joking aside, if you begin to understand these truths, and you go beyond mere awareness into, what's the word? Let's scribble it up there. What's it? Insightful awareness. You will begin to see your world in a very different way. We are redefining life. That's what we're doing here. We are redefining living. You know how to live in the modern era. This is living in the Buddha's era. Life in the Buddha's era. When the Buddha dawns on your heart, then this is how you will begin to perceive the world. See, when you begin to understand that this is merely an interpretation of a change of energy, and this just happens to be because of it just randomly came into contact with one of these sense objects. This is all that's going on here is just change of energy. Some changes this sense organ is receptive to. Some changes, those vibrations, this sense organ is receptive to. Some vibrations, this sense organ is receptive to. See, 20 to 20,000 hertz, this sense organ is not going to pick up, but this sense organ would. That's the only difference. It's just a difference of vibration. Keep on vibrating that, and then you begin to see what you heard previously, now you begin to see. When you heat something, doesn't it start to glow? I take a rod or something, when you heat it, it starts to glow, doesn't it? Sometimes it goes first red, then orange, and blue, and then it goes incandescent, white. You can make it glow all the way up. How is that giving off color? Is it giving off color? Are you adding color for it to give off color? Just think about that for a second. If this was an iron rod and I start heating it, you know that as you keep on heating and turn up the heat, what's going to happen? So first the iron, let's say it starts black, then it goes red, then it goes orangish, then it goes blue, and ultimately it can go white. Okay? All I'm doing is heating it with a torch gun. Do you see me adding color to it? So how come the color keeps changing then? Is it the color that keeps changing? Is it? No. What's going on there? Energy. So as I keep holding the torch gun next to this iron and I keep throwing energy at it, there's an energy change that's happening on this object. Some of the energy is being absorbed, the other is doing what? Reflected. Is given off. And that energy travels in a medium and it reaches your eyes. So it's a change of energy that you pick up. Color was never given off. If it was the iron changing color, then I should be giving color with the torch. So then there is no color out there. All you're saying is just awareness. This is merely awareness. But insightful awareness is knowing what you're saying. As in, not merely knowing that this is a pen, this is a fan, this is a saucer. That's not the knowing that I'm talking about. It's actually knowing what's going on when we talk about seeing. That's what you know now. You never interpreted sight in this way before, did you? Not before you listened to the Dhamma. Let's take yourself 5-10 years back. Right? When you saw an object, you saw a flower, a rose for instance, right? And the rose was red. What did we learn? Roses are red. Violets are, see? What a load of lies. And they teach you that at nursery school, don't they? See, from the start, they get to associate with Kalyavana Mitras. Not Kalyana Mitras, Kalyavana Mitras. Meaning, friends who keep you in samsara, who keep you bound to samsara, so that you keep on spending more and more and more time in samsara. Because the more you keep thinking that roses are red and violets are blue, you will be in samsara. So we could revise that nursery rhyme now. Roses are red, violets are blue, you're in samsara, so the joke is on you. So that's the rhyme now. See, insightful awareness is what we need. So then you could say, roses aren't red, violets aren't blue, colors in your mind. So Nibbāna is for you. That would be true. But they taught us lies right from the start. Even if you take any school textbook, those primary school textbooks, turn those pages and it will say, one of the first rhymes you will learn is what? Roses are red, violets are blue. Baba, what sheep? Black sheep. So how do we get these children to Nibbana? How do we get minds to Nibbana? Not children, minds. How do we get minds to Nibbana? It's no laughing matter. Don't think that, we are just talking about colors, Swami. So what's the big deal? So what, if a kid learns that a rose is red, what's the big deal? The big deal? Really? The big deal is that kid's going to be stuck in samsara, and unless he or she meets the Buddha or a disciple of the Buddha, they will never come out of that ignorance. What you have just given that child is a drushti of the Mara. Don't think he was just teaching the child a nursery rhyme. No. You've just anchored that child to samsara. That's what you've done. Because now that child goes home thinking that color is in the object. Meaning that child has no reflection or no recognition that color is merely consciousness. Therefore, they don't understand that this existence is merely consciousness. Chitta is coming into existence and passing away. The child has no opportunity to think that or question that or even to come into any sort of cognition about that. You might ask me the question then, Swami, how do you expect nursery teachers to be teaching all this stuff to kids? Yeah, I understand that. But just because you don't know the truth doesn't mean what you teach is the truth. Or just because you don't have access to the truth doesn't mean you have to teach them lies. We can't change the system. The system is a system. Because this system is not designed to get you out of samsara. The world system, it's called, is designed to keep you well and truly in it. That's why they call it the worldly system. Business is part of the worldly system. Education is part of the worldly system. Economics is part of the worldly system. Commerce is part of the worldly system. Science is part of the worldly system. Did you know that? Science, the science that you know, is part of the worldly system. Because science talks about entities. What did you learn for physics? There's an object that is at rest. Another object traveling at 5 miles per hour comes into contact with the said object. Now you have to use formulae to describe what's going to happen. To what? The said objects, meaning the things that exist. Where's anicca, where's dukkha, where's anatta? Our education system is not designed to get people off of samsara. It's designed well and truly to keep you nicely wound and tucked into samsara. Can we change it? I don't think so. So then what's the point? What do? Can we just turn a blind eye, look away, turn away, and just pretend like nothing's gone wrong? All we can do is encourage people to keep on earning merits, doing merits, and listening to the truth. Very few will come across the pristine teachings of the Dhamma, and they, for themselves, as well as their families and their children and their beloved ones, will take this option, will take this path, and they will open up the truths to them and their families. But that will only happen for very few. You are among that few. Well, I think you are among that few. I like to think you are among that few. That is why you bring your child to the other sermon that's happening in the other room right now. Because you want them to also, despite what they learn at school, which are conventional truths, you also want them to learn the absolute truths. Because these conventional truths, ladies and gentlemen, are only true for you until you're alive. After you're dead, it's of no use to you. For one, you don't even remember any of it. For two, these principles don't apply in the world after this. There's no money once you become a preta. There are no rules and regulations and law. There are no civil enforcement agencies once you become a preta. It's a dog-eat-dog world out there. You live merely by the currency of your merit. That's it. Whatever merits you have done will come to save you. Whatever demerit you have done will spell your disaster. That's it. This is the universal currency. This is what you have to earn universal currency, consciousness. Because currency is generated by chittas. The universal currency of merit is generated by chittas, not by money. How often have you come across people who think that I don't want to be offensive, I'm just trying to think whether I should or shouldn't. How often have you come across people who think that you can earn money by working hard? Actually, the answer would be pretty much everyone, because that's the philosophy that we were taught when we were younger. When you work hard, you earn. And the harder you work, the more you earn. In other words, they think that earning is a result of working. Wrong. You can't earn because you work. Because if you work hard, then you earn more than people who toil day and night, porters, right? People who go out to sea, people who do mining jobs, right? These people, they work tremendously hard and they should be earning more. Then on the other hand, there are people who kill to earn, kill animals. And they earn, they make their living doing that. It's not the killing that gives them the money. See if you can disconnect these two and understand actually what's going on here. You can't, you see, think about this for a second. When you earn something that helps you live a good life, a better life, right, a comfortable life, should that not be the result of merits? What do you think? Could it also be the result of bad, unwholesome deeds? Could it? Once again, I'll throw the question to you once again. What you give is what you get, right? So if you get something, it must be because you've given similar. So if you get something good, then you must have given something good. If you get something bad, then you must have given something bad. Agreed? So far, so good? Okay. When you earn money, that money helps you to live a comfortable life. That's how you pay your bills, it's how you buy your food, it's how you take your chores done, right? All sorts. That's how you live a comfortable life. So I don't deny that. Money is necessary to live a reasonably comfortable life. Let's take a man whose job is to kill for a living. So he kills cows, let's say. That's his living. He kills cows for a living. What sort of a deed is killing a cow? Or any animal for that matter? Is that a meritorious deed or a non-meritorious deed? Pranagata? Meritorious or unmeritorious? What do you say? Unmeritorious, right? But at the end of the month, he collects a paycheck, doesn't he? Yes? Okay. So the receiving money, which helps one to lead a comfortable life, so something that helps someone to lead a comfortable life must be the result of a merit, mustn't it? Something that helps someone to live a comfortable life must be the result of merits. But is it a merit that he's done throughout the rest of the month? Is it? No. Then can't you see that these two things are unrelated? Then he can't be getting his paycheck for killing cows, can he? Can he? No. But that's what we think. That's what people will have you think. That's what we feel. So he kills animals. At the end of the month, he gets a paycheck, and he gets that paycheck because he kills. But if receiving money helps you lead a comfortable life, and the means to lead a comfortable life, if that is the result of a merit, well, then it couldn't have been what you did throughout the month. Yes or no? Yes or no? Of course, it couldn't have been what you did throughout the rest of the month. So then earning that money should have been merits that you've done previously. Some other time of your life. But what you're doing now is killing. Killing is not what gets you your paycheck. So then let me give you this principle. From time to time I share these principles with you. These are principles for life. If in your jobs you ever have to do something that is unmeritorious, whether that is to kill, to lie, to steal, to indulge in sensual or let's say sexual misconduct, if that is part of your job, to backstab, to fool people, to trick people, to deceive people. I'm not saying that is what you do. I'm just this is just a safety net I'm throwing at you. You want to catch it. Okay? If in your jobs, you have to do these things, and at the end of the month, they give you a paycheck. Ladies and gentlemen, please don't be fooled to think that that paycheck was a result of your bad actions throughout the month. Because you don't get money, which is a means to live a comfortable life, for doing unmeritorious deeds. You don't get good for doing sin. That's not how the world works. So what are you getting this paycheck for? Good that you would have done previously. And off the back of that, there's another thing coming. So what about the bad you're doing now then? Exactly. When the chickens come home to roost, That will be the day that you will regret. But people don't understand these things, people don't see these things. So don't you think ever, like sometimes you might not like politicians, for example. I use the example of politicians because they're often the recipients of criticism, and they often get the right, let's move on. So we know the forbidden word in this house. Let's not talk about that. Okay, not politicians. Let's just say there are people who you think... So awareness then. Politicians. They are often on the receiving end of criticism and bad reputation and cynicism and all that. People often say, right, look at them, they do all this mischief, they do all this bribery and corruption and all sorts. I'm not talking about our country, okay? Just in case. Some other country in a faraway land. None of our politicians are corrupt. They're all good people. But in some other country, far away, in a faraway land, maybe on the moon, let's just say, there are politicians and they may be on the receiving end of this kind of hate. And then often people say, well, look at them. Look at these people, they do all this mischief. They do all these evil, terrible things and see how they get money at the end of all that. So what's the point of us living a virtuous life? Sometimes you end up convincing yourself that virtuousness is of no use. Having your integrity intact is of no use. Sometimes you end up convincing yourself of that falsehood. It is not so, ladies and gentlemen. What you get because of what you give. If you have given good, you get good. If you have given bad, you get bad. Did I not suggest to you that that can be even your religion? Last week or the week before? Last week, I think it was. If you don't have a religion and you want a religion, then that can be your religion. Do good to others and good will happen to you. Do bad to others and bad shall happen to you. So if they get something at the end of the month, if they get money, if they get wealth, if they get fame, if they get glory, if they get whatever, positions, whatever, all of that is because of what they have given in the past, good that they have given in the past, not because of the bad or evil actions of their present. All of those actions are now accruing and accumulating demerit, which will one day come back to haunt them. Them and anyone, for that matter. Because karma is universal. It's universal because there is no doer in the karma. It's only the done. There's no owner to karma. That's why it's universal. So, but what I don't want you to ever think is that these two things are connected. Someone lives an unholy life, an unvirtuous life, an evil life, and a life of malice and hatred and avarice, right? And so how come they get all this wealth and prosperity at the end of that? These two things are not connected. That's why I asked you, how can a man who spends his month killing then get a paycheck at the end of the month? How can you say that these two things, one led to the other? It's not so. Granted, they would not have had an opportunity to get some money or open the door, so to say, at the end of their work. If they hadn't done any work, then the door wouldn't have opened. But the money they got out of it is not because of the killing. So if any of you are involved in whatever work, most of you are in work, at work, and you're in work, doing jobs and so on. If there's any aspect of your work that you have to do that goes against your conscience, if you have a heavy conscience at the end of the day, and if you feel like your pillow is like a rock, you can't rest your head on it, it doesn't feel comfortable, And that is because of something you're having to do as part of your work. Don't think that the paycheck that you get at the end of the month has any connection to the work that you do. It's not so. Those two things are unrelated. The check is for the good things you have done in your life, and the bad that you're doing today will have its consequences later. Therefore, what do I ask you to do? Refrain from all unwholesomeness. Sabba papassa akarana. So not for money, not for fame, not for glory, not for anything, not for your children even. I will go as far as saying that even. Not even for your children, for the sake of your children, must you do unwholesome deeds, because it's not worth it. It's not worth it. Not for your husband or your wife, not even for yourself must you do unwholesome deeds. Because when it comes back as consequences, when it comes back to bite you, when it comes back as time for you to suffer, then no one that you did those things on behalf of can come and save you. Because it's not their karma to pay up. It's your karma, isn't it? So please bear that in mind. It's the basic level of circle of virtue that you must have around you. If you do demerits, then this Dhamma will not make sense to you, because your mind will become rock solid, not physically but metaphorically. It'll become as if it were a rock, and then it will be very difficult to feed the Dhamma. The Dhamma will not make sense, because for the Dhamma to make sense, your mind has to be very soft and very supple. It has to be full of compassion and loving kindness and metta. Without that, the Dhamma won't make sense. This will make sense logically perhaps, but it will not take root. You will not be able to comprehend the Dhamma, meaning it will not become your operating system. You will understand, you may understand it with intelligence, but when you begin to live life and start to apply what you have learned, it will seem like it's just going over your head. Nothing's happening. That's why the Buddha's advice is start with Sabba Papa Sakarana. Secondly, he says Kusala Supasampada. Thirdly, he says Shadita Pariyodapana. He doesn't start the other way around. He says the first things first, stop all unmeritorious deeds on its tracks. Don't proceed. Stop. So whatever you're having to do, or you do out of volition, or whatever, just make sure that you don't have anything that you have a heavy conscience about. With a heavy conscience, you can't understand this. Understand what again? Awareness? No, everyone gets awareness. What do people not have? Insightful awareness. Now, anicca is what I have just explained to you. Cause and effect. All of this comes into existence, arises because of causes and conditions. Dukkha is the manifestation that you get to see. This is all energy. Dukkha is the manifestation. Anatta is your understanding that there are no entities here, but mere manifestations of energy coming together. Now I just brushed over Anicca, Dukkha and Anatta there in 1 or 2 lines, which is not the full explanation of it. But, we have to go step by step. I'm glad if today, like I said, you can walk away with 2 things, having understood 2 things. 1, awareness is general awareness. Everyone has awareness. Even any monkey can have awareness. So you being aware of what's going on is no big deal. If any being is sentient, it means they're aware. Sentience is the basic requirement for awareness. If they're sentient, then they're aware. They're aware in one way or the other. Some animals may not have all 5 senses. Maybe some only have the sense of sight. Maybe some only have the sense of touch, perhaps. But whichever sense they have, it affords them awareness. But to have insightful awareness, it is not sufficient to have the 5 senses. What do you need? The faculty of wisdom. It is the faculty of wisdom that helps you to have insightful awareness. What is insightful awareness then? At the fundamental level, it is to understand that awareness itself is merely interpretation of energy changes that happen in the outside world. Sights and sounds and smells and taste and touch, none of those things exist on which side? On which side? On my right side or on my left side? On which side do they not exist? Sight, sound, smell, taste, touch? On my right side. They don't exist on my right side. Sorry, on my left side. Where do they exist? On the other side, on my right side. That's where they do exist. Meaning, they are merely interpretations. They are merely chittas, consciousness. So now do you understand what you are? Okay, what are you then? Someone said lunatics. No, that is what I call you. What are you though? What do you call yourselves? Consciousness. You're just chittas. What you have brought here are physical bodies. That's just matter. Right? That's just matter. But matter is not the important part of you. The important part of you is your consciousness. Your ability to be aware. But your ability to be aware is not what makes you special. Your ability to be insightfully aware is your speciality. But hardly anyone actually uses it. You are all blessed, ladies and gentlemen, with the faculty of wisdom. It's time you start making use of it. So reflect on this for the rest of the week. Now you did last Sunday, you did it with your dinner. So this week on, what I want you to do is to try and practice this as much as you possibly can. Find yourself some opportune moments in which you can practice. Try this out. Truth is, you must be able to do it around the clock, whenever you're awake. But let's come to that gradually. For the time being, try and find, maybe it's when you have your tea. Right? If you are in the habit of sitting in your garden and having your tea, and perhaps if it's a quiet time for you, then use that time. Because like I said, you can do this while people are talking with you, chatting with you, whatever. But initially, it might be a little bit challenging. So when you're alone, those alone moments, treasure them. Were you like that in the past? Some people may be, but others actually like company. Right? It's nice to have company. So being alone might have been one of the worst things in your life. Maybe you are always someone who always looked for company. To be with someone, talk with someone, spend time with someone, at least on social media or on the end of a phone call, whatever. But as you begin to realize the depths of what is available to you, the profoundness of the Dhamma, and how much of your salvation is there for you left to do, now you realize that these alone moments that you have with yourself are very precious. So don't sacrifice them. Don't just give them up so freely. Treasure them. Use them. So don't auction your time off to your friends, uncles and aunts and grandparents and whoever's. If you can find some time for yourself, treasure it. Because there's stuff that you have to do now. You can meditate. You don't have to sit down. If you're alone at home, or if you have a moment of alone time, right? Take yourself to the garden, your backyard, right? As you sit down and look at the grass, or if you have flowers, or if it's the birds or the bees or whatever, look at what you see in nature and ask yourself, am I seeing colors? Am I hearing sounds? This grass beneath my feet, am I sensing the grass beneath my feet? Are these tactile sensations actually things that the grass has? Or are they merely interpretations of my own world? Did I ask you to pinch yourselves the last time? Last week I did, yes. When you pinch yourself, what you feel when you do that, do you think it feels that here? Do you think it feels it here? It doesn't. But what does it feel like? That pain or that sensation is here, right? It's not here, ladies and gentlemen. It's in your mind. It's not here. But why do you feel the pain here? That is what that perception is like. It's what that perception is like. Just like you're able to pick up that a sound's coming from afar, your 2 ears help you do 3D listening, don't they? You can say which direction sound's coming from. Yeah? So now with those speakers, it feels like they're coming from that direction, but you can see Swami Nivāsa at the other end of the hall. So now you put both these pieces of information together, and you disregard the fact that the sound's coming to you from a diagonal angle, and you take on the fact that Swami Nivāsa is on the other side of the room, so this sound must be coming from the other end. Your mind's computing all that information. It's how it makes sense of the world. So then if your mind can do all that with sound, what makes you think that when you pinch yourself like this, your mind can't make you believe that sensation is coming all the way up your arm? It's not really. I'll leave today with one thing for you to contemplate. Are there any gym goers in the room? Okay. Either when you go to the gym or you work out, or just at home, just when you do some yoga or whatever, right? When you physically exert yourself, feels tired, doesn't it? After a while, your muscles start to ache, your body starts to ache, and you feel a bit weak. These aches and pains is the subject of my dialogue with you. Let's assume that you're doing some push-ups. So when you start doing your push-ups, your arms will begin to hurt, your biceps, triceps, these things will start to hurt. Chest muscles might start to hurt. And then you feel like giving up. You're giving up not because you worked out enough, you're giving up because now it's beginning to hurt. And you feel that this hurt is actually in the muscles. To draw a very simple example, now let's say I held this cup up. It's full of water. So if I held this up like this for a few minutes, it's going to get very painful. My fingers are going to start to hurt. The low part of my arm is going to hurt, and I would want to put it down. See, my mind interprets pain in that way. Actually, pain does not exist in any of your muscles. Pain does not exist in muscles. Pain is a perception. This is ambrosia for those who suffer from pain. If there are those among you who are trying to deal with pain, right? Maybe there are people in the audience who have backaches and knee aches and leg aches and ear aches and that aches and all sorts of aches and pains. It comes to a certain time in life when all you have is pain, right? That's how you know you're alive. It still hurts. When you wake up in the morning, it still hurts, and so you know you're still alive. It's a time that comes to all of us in our lives. So thankfully it hurts, so you know you're still alive. But when that pain strikes you, ladies and gentlemen, dear mothers and fathers, when that pain strikes you, use this knowledge, use this wisdom. The doctor will tell you that your mind is aware of your pain. I want you to be insightfully aware of your pain. This is wonderful medicine for those who suffer from pain. Actually, this is stuff that they should be talking about in pain clinics. This is stuff they should be talking about in pain clinics. Because the pain that you experience in your physical body is not pain that is experienced in those parts of the body. Those parts are completely numb to that pain. In other words, actually pain does not even arise there. It's your mind interpreting changes in your body. So, when your knees hurt, for instance, it's not so bad. It's not as bad as they feel. When you're exercising and you're doing your push-ups and you decided to do 50 and you've only done 10 and now you want to feel like you want to give up because your muscles have started to ache and hurt, that ache, that pain and that ache does not actually exist in your muscles. It's merely your mind interpreting changes in your body's chemical balances. You might ask this question though. Why does the body or the mind interpret pain as pain? Why is pain painful? Shall I repeat that silly question? What is almost a silly question? Why is pain painful? Why can't pain be joyful? Have you never wondered why pain is painful? Pain is just a name, right? Pain is just a name for a sensation. But that pain is painful, isn't it? Why is pain painful? I'll give you an answer that will blow your mind. I hope these things will encourage you to cross the ocean of samsara and get to the other side. Otherwise, this is just frivolous speech. Speech for nothing's sake. I really hope it's not that. And you will use this knowledge, this insight, this wisdom to help you on your journey across samsara. Okay? The question I have posed to you is, why is pain painful? Let's go back to the gym. When you're working out, what are you doing with energy? It's called expending energy. Let's say you do a workout and you spend 10,000 calories. So that's one heck of a workout. But let's say you spend 10,000 calories. Okay? Let's keep it realistic. Okay. 5,000 calories. Let's say you've spent 5,000 calories. So you will have to have worked out to spend 5,000 calories. Now, where did those calories come from? The food that you ate. That's the only way you can get your calories, from the food that you eat. Which one was more painful? Intake or outlet? Which one was more painful? Actually, which one was more painful even makes no sense, because the intake was not painful at all, was it? You can gulp down 5,000 calories like it's going out of fashion. Right? A couple of cheeseburgers and some ketchup and some fries and a bottle of your favorite fizzy drink. And we'll talk after I'm done. Right? So 5,000 calories going down is no problem at all. Why is that not painful? See, burning 5,000 calories is painful. Taking in 5,000 calories is not painful at all. There seems to be no resistance. No resistance. But which does more harm to you? The former, or rather, taking in does more harm to you than burning it. So logically and rationally speaking, which one should be the more painful one? Taking in should be painful, so your body's natural defense mechanism should kick in and go, whoa, hold on, you've already had 1,000, let's stop now. And it should make it painful to you, shouldn't it? But that's not painful. But then once you start burning your calories, that becomes gradually more and more painful to the point where you ultimately stop. Not because you've burnt enough, but you've had enough of the pain. Have you ever wondered why? Lo and behold, the nature of ignorance and attachment. The purpose of ignorance is to separate energy, is to attract and separate energy. Energy that belongs to the universe. Ignorance comes along. It straddles your mind, your consciousness, and then says, energy, keep it for yourself. It is so greedy for energy, because energy is all there is. There's nothing more than that. Energy is all there is. So packing up energy, taking in energy is not painful at all. The only point where you stop is where you feel too full. Because if you take in more than that, then your stomach explodes, and then the whole point of taking in energy falls on its feet. Or falls on its knees. So therefore it's pointless. That's why there's a mechanism where you feel too full and you stop. But when you start to expend energy, your mind tells you that it's what full? Painful. Why? It wants to stop you from expending energy. Who created the mind? Ignorance created the mind. Ignorance, the whole agenda of ignorance is to pack up energy, keep on packing energy, keep on separating energy, keep on accumulating energy and packing it up and bundling it up and separating it for oneself. That's the whole motive of ignorance. So when ignorance created the mind, it created it in such a way that any expense of energy was to be painful. That's why when you work out, it's painful. But when you consume the same amount of calories, you could do it without any trouble at all. You are a child of ignorance. The mind is a child of ignorance. So then when you're working out, either you're doing some chores in your garden, or you're at the gym, and the doctor said you have to run at least half a mile every day. Otherwise you won't be able to complete your journey at Rajagiriya. So go to the gym, half an hour every day. Just do some rounds around the block. When you start feeling that it's getting painful, right, to a certain extent you can ignore it. I'm not going to be your doctor now until you completely ignore it, because then you'll come back to me one day and say, answer. I ignored you, I not ignored you, I ignored my pain, and now I only have one leg. The other fell by the bus hold and I didn't stop to pick it up. Now I only have one leg, what are you going to do for me? So I'm not going to be your doctor, you do what you have to do, but I want you to understand the truth behind all this, folks. You are a child of ignorance. Ignorance is your mother. Or if you like, ignorance is your father and attachment is your mother. You are a child of ignorance. You're here to serve ignorance's agenda, not yours. That's what you're here to serve. That's why you're curious. That's why you want to know. That's why when there's a change in the universe, you want to know. That's why you want to know. That's why you were born with a pair of eyes, because you want to know when something happens. You're curious. You're so curious that it isn't enough just to see what's happening, you also want to hear what's happening. And when that's not enough, you also want to smell what's going on and taste what's going on and feel what's going on. See? And the irony is all those are creations of your own mind. None of those things actually happened on the outside. All that happened out there was a change of energy. You're merely interpreting them in your own little ways, in your own little world, because you want to know. Why do you want to know? Because knowledge is so pleasurable. Why so? Well, that is what ignorance's agenda is. Let's get to know stuff. Last words for today then. In a world where there is wisdom, there shall be little knowledge. In a world where there is little wisdom, there shall be much knowledge. Looking at the way this world is heading, which do you think there is more of? Wisdom or knowledge? Knowledge. This world is bereft with knowledge. All there is knowledge. The more knowledge there is, the little wisdom there will remain. Because when there is an abundance of wisdom, Your wisdom tells you that all is the same. If all is the same, what's there to get to? No. When there is wisdom, knowledge is obsolete, redundant. When there is no wisdom, now knowledge becomes precious. When you send your child to school, what do they fill the child's mind with? Wisdom or knowledge? Knowledge. But same school on Sunday morning? Wisdom. Right, let's leave it there. Let us all take a moment then to transfer the merits that we have all acquired by making offerings to the infinite virtues of the Noble Triple Gem, inviting the Swamin once to deliver the sermon, attentively listening to the sermon and contemplating on the Dhamma that you have learned today, as well as making a creative and conducive environment for all to come along and practice. Let us take a moment to transfer this merits to the bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, upasakas and upasikas who have since time immemorial protected and preserved the sublime teachings of the Buddha and passed it down to generations of the noble lineage in the form of the Tripitaka, which is thankfully available today to study, understand and comprehend the Dhamma. Let us take a moment to transfer these merits to all the monks and nuns resident throughout the world, including the Mahanayakas, the Anunayakas of all the chapters, as well as Guru Hamran Hanse, my teacher, and all the monks resident at the monastery, and the Anagarikas and Anagarikas resident at the monastery, as well as the monks and nuns who have always been by your side through thick and thin, come rain or shine. Let us also transfer these merits to those who make great efforts to disseminate the teachings of the Buddha, be that by translating these talks, sharing them out with others, or inviting others to join them. May they all rejoice in these merits, and by the power of these merits, may they be healed of any physical and mental ailments and overcoming obstacles to their spiritual progress. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer these merits to our mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, sons and daughters, grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, nephews and nieces, our friends, our acquaintances, our employers, our employees, and as our teachers, reminding ourselves that they would have gone the extra mile on our behalf and left no stone unturned to help make our lives as comfortable as they could. And so with an abundance of compassion and loving kindness towards all of them, let us transfer all these merits to all. May by the power of these merits they also be freed of any physical and mental ailments and overcoming obstacles to their spiritual progress. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer these merits to Devas and Brahmanas, spirits and demons, primarily the Sakadeva, as well as all the immense gods and deities who have committed themselves to fulfill and preserve the sum of the Sasana. Let us transfer these merits to our guardian deities who keep a watchful eye over us and keep us out of harm's way. May they prosper in divine power and wisdom. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer these merits to our forefathers, our ancestors, reminding ourselves that it is in their blood, sweat, and tears today we are able to enjoy the comforts of life as we do and practice the path in peace and harmony. Let us transfer these merits to members of the armed forces as well as the police force who sacrifice their lives to protect the peace and harmony of our nation, as well as those who have lost their lives in the wars, be they friend or foe, and those who lost their lives to natural calamities and disasters such as the tsunamis and earthquakes, landslides, fires, floods, pandemics, and so on, reminding ourselves that in this infinitely long journey of samsara, they would all have been mothers and fathers to us, friends to us, and with an abundance of compassion and loving kindness and gratitude towards all, may we transfer all these merits to all of them. May by the power of these merits, if any of them have been born in the woeful planes, they redeem themselves and be born in the blissful plane. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, may by the power and blessings of all the merits we have acquired throughout the day, we be able to witness the advent of many hundreds or thousands of arahants of this blessed land. And finally, may you and I and everyone who's helped make this program a success become an enlightened one in this era of the Buddha Sasana itself and in this life itself. May the blessings of the Noble Triple Gem be with you all. The members of the Mahasangha will now transfer their blessings to you. Raga ginnen midetva, dvesha ginnen midetva, moha ginnen midetva, Nibbāna parama sukhayen sukhitatara vedva. Nibbāna parama sukhayen sukhitatara vedva. Mamada siyalu loka siyalu satnayo Nibbāna parama sukhayen sukhitatara vedva. Nibbāna parama sukhayen sukhitatara vedva. Nibbāna parama sukhayen sukhitatara vedva. Rajagiriya niveva dveshagini niveva mohagini niveva nivan sapalaveva nivan sapalaveva nivan sapalaveva. Jumrange, so is Yananta Mahaguna Belin, Silu Loka Silu Satyoma, Nibbāna Paramasukhen Sukhitatara vedva. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.